Hello everyone, Grandmaster Dejan Bojkov here with our next video, ways of bringing on the reserves when attacking. Well, it's quite understandable that if we want to have successful attack, we want to have more pieces attacking than the opponent has defenders. Strictly speaking, there are two ways of getting better into the attack, of bringing more reserves than the opponent has defenders. One way is explosive, it's quite direct. We are trying to blow the position and bring on the waiting pieces from behind, the central break being the most obvious example. And the other one is the calm, slow way of bringing the pieces in which we're trying to maneuver, and with every move to get more and more fresh supplies into the position and into the attack so that we can finally checkmate the opponent. Let me show you two examples to see the difference. The first example is the game Wróblewski against Imre Hera from the Khanty-Mansiysk World Cup 2007. That game started as Caracan. After e4, c6, d4, d5, and e5. The advanced variation was played, and this is quite a common guess nowadays at the tournaments, super tournaments as well. White is gaining more space. Black, on his hand, is happy to bring the bishop out and to get sort of a French defense with an active bishop. After knight e2, e6, and knight b3, White is trying to prevent Black from playing easily the move c5. All of this is famous theory. All of this has been played before many times. Actually, at the time that this game was played, this line was still in ongoing process of developing, but people knew quite a lot about it. So White castled, Black played h5. This is, first of all, it's prophylactical move. Sometimes Black wants to stop the move g4 in the typical kingside attack because thanks to this pawn wedge, White is happy to attack on the king side, and at the same time he wants to secure the f5 square for his knight. White developed normally with bishop d2, and on knight h6 he decided to attack in the center as well with the move c4, trying to make use of the fact that the opponent's king stays in the middle, and it's not going to be that safe perhaps to castle short. Hera took on c4, and Wróblewski answered knight a5. This is even better than capturing with the bishop because the knight has more perspectives on the c4 square. So that knight went on c4, regained the pawn, and after knight f5, bishop a5, and knight b6, a curious position appeared on the board in which Black has some problems with his pinned knight on b6, but on the other hand it's not so easy for White to exploit it, in particular if he goes queen to b3. Black has the interesting move queen d5, counterpinning, and after bishop b6, a b6, queen b6, and h4, followed by short castle, he will have compensation for the sacrificed pawn, thanks to the two bishops and the pressure that he exerts against the pawn on d4. Instead of playing this, Wróblewski decided to play for the initiative, and he went rook c1, bringing on the rook into the game and actually setting a small trap in a way that he is luring Black into this very tempting move queen to d5, which he played in the game, and this looks very active. He is getting rid of the pin, he's putting pressure on the knight, the bishop, and the pawn on e2, but in the process Hera forgot that his king remained in the center. Not that he forgot, but he underestimated the dangers that might happen because of that. It was better for him, and it was, I would say, mandatory to castle at the first possible case. In fact, Capablanca once was telling to his teammates in the Cuban national team, do castle at the first possible opportunity. And in that case, Hera should have listened to Capablanca, even though they were not teammates, and even though Hera is from Hungary, but still, we should listen to the classics every once in a while. But why is queen d5 such a bad move? Well, after bishop b6, a b6, and knight b6, Black is regaining the pawn, and he also got the bishop pair, so everything seems fairly easy for him. Next move is going to be short castle. It seems like nobody can stop him. Obviously, Hera spent a lot of time calculating the consequences of the move rook to a1, but then he decided that there is nothing really scary for him. He can take on b2, and the maximum that White will get is some perpetual attack on his queen and eventually a draw, which was good for him from the match point of view. But Wróblewski found an even better move in this situation, And that's an excellent idea. He played the move d5. That's the central break that I was talking about. Central break unleashes the power of the pieces from behind, and they are getting open files. In that particular case, both the queen and the rook will get open files, as we're about to see. And on the top of that, white is using some little tactical ideas, in particular the bad situation of the black queen. Now, the worst of all the captures will be c takes d5, because after bishop e5 check, black has very poor choice, either to go on f8 and to lose the rook on b8, or to go to d8, which might be even worse because of the queen to c2. There is no escape from the threat. Queen to c7, checkmate. In that case, white is using the open c file, the freshly open c file. If black captures on d5 with the other pawn, with the e-pawn, then Wróblewski wanted to exploit that little pawn on d5, the presence of that pawn, to trap the opponent's queen with the move knight a4. Before that, this wouldn't hurt black. He could simply escape with queen to d5. But here, white is blocking to trap the queen. For example, b5, rook a1, queen a4, rook a4, ba4. And black doesn't have enough compensation for the queen. White can further on take the pawn on c6, and after that win the one eventually on d5. So the analysis proved that he should be winning here. This line is given also by Wróblewski himself. One more line, besides the captures with the pawns, is if black captures the pawn on b2. But here the problem is that after rook b1, queen to c3, the pawn jumps all the way to d6. It's going to get defended passer, and it's going to be very strong. It can further on go to d7, destroy the castling of the black king, and white is going to have very, very powerful attack. This is the reason why black didn't like this one. Neither he liked the move queen to a7 here, because then knight e7 would have been a very nice shot. Once again, trying to make use of the power of the pieces from behind and trying to bring those pieces into the attack with tempos. For example, if king takes d7, that's the tempo that I was talking about. The pawn takes on c6, that's a double check, and after king e8 there is a check, and the pawn itself is going even further, and the pawn itself is also reserve. It's a very strong attacker. It can be turned into a queen whenever it reaches the last rank. If in that line after knight e7 black tries to capture on d5, then the problem would be rook a1, the queen is trapped, and once again black doesn't have enough compensation for the queen. White continues the attack with material advantage. And finally, on knight e7, if they try rook to a8, then capture on c6, and once more, white has powerful attack. The problem for black is that anytime he captures on d7, there'll be this neat and very powerful move, bishop to b5, when the capture on d1 will be met with rook c8 double check and checkmate. And once more, we brought the reserves into the attack, not only the rook on the open file, but even the bishop on the diagonal. There is no escape for black here. If rook d8, there'll be queen d7, another discovered attack, plus a check, and on bishop d8, we're bringing on the last piece into the action, the rook, and it's over. Now, after seeing all these lines, we understand the problems that black was facing and the desperate situation in which he was. He played the move queen to a5, which also appeared to lose. White took on c6, and after the move rook d8, which was played in the game, white managed to finish the game in a really beautiful way. But it should be added that there was no escape here neither. Probably the less evil was to castle, but after knight e7, black would be down in exchange and technically losing, say, after these moves. If instead of this he has captured on c6 with the pawn, there would be queen d7 check, followed by knight to c8. Now that the files are opened and white is using them, he can use even the back rank to bring closer his pieces to the enemy king, in particular the knight on c8, and a possible line is bishop b4, to which rook a1 would be a win for white after queen to c7. But why is the move rook d8 not a good idea for black? It seems like it should solve all the problems. It seems like black will have time to capture after that the knight on b6, or if this knight goes to d7, he will have time to take on c6 and eventually castle, or even make use of the pin. Well, here is the problem. We still have a chance for an explosive way of bringing this piece into the attack. And we are explosively sacrificing the queen with the move queen d7. Very beautiful move. After black is basically resigning. If he goes away with the king, there'll be c7, and there'll be a new queen coming now on c8. And white has an extra rook plus attack. Or after queen d7, if he captures, which he did in the game with rook d7, there'll be c takes d7 check, king f8, another check, another check, and basically white took every single piece of the opponent, almost every single one, plus that pawn on d7 is still alive and kicking and very strong, and bishop b5 is supporting it, and black resigned, not wishing to see either rook e8 with checkmate or d8, which is going to win the queen back, or even rook d1 first, followed by d8. There is nothing to play for. So that's the explosive way of bringing on the reserves into the attack. We're going to have a look at the game Karyakin with the white pieces against Ivanchuk that was played in 2011, the tournament in Medias. The opening here is the Perk defense. Karyakin opted for the Vienna attack, and after some normal development of the pieces, he grabbed the center with d5. On knight c7 he played e4, Ivanchuk reacted with b6, and here is a very typical way of bringing on the reserves. Now, if you have a look at the pawn structure into the middle, we see that white has a stronger center. This means that he should be ready to attack on the king side. Normally, if you have stronger center, you go for the opponent's king. It's easier to transfer your pieces from the center to the king side. This is the logic. So what he is doing, he goes queen e1. The idea, queen h4, followed by f5, followed by bishop h6. Very typical idea, followed by knight g5 after that, treat, and eventually some checkmate on h7. Ivanchuk obviously knows that he doesn't want to allow this. He goes e6 and he tries to challenge the center of his opponent, to which Karyakin takes, and after f takes e6, he comes with a strong novelty, but at the same time very logical move. He goes e5. The idea, just like in the previous example, he wants to open the f file for the rook, so in some ways this is central break, but this time he's not sacrificing anything. And the other idea is that he is opening the e4 square for his knight. Incidentally, this is also a novelty, but like I told you, very logical one. White wants to occupy a good central outposts with the knight. The knight is now very, very close to the enemy king. It is ready to attack. So if you want to attack with the knights, try to put them somewhere close to the center. From there, they have easy access to the opponent's king. Okay, Ivanchuk replied with d takes e5. Just to mention that a move like knight f4 can be answered simply bishop f4, and on rook f4 capture on g6 with a pawn or with a knight. This is not even a pawn sacrifice. That's why Ivanchuk took on e5 directly. F takes e5, and now he had a very big choice of what to do. Black had very big choice. But in most of the cases, this is something that is not really quite convincing. For example, if he goes knight to e8 to cover the f6 square, white can use the g5 square for his knight and jab on g5, the idea being queen to h4, and this bishop has been discovered, and the knight was shifted from the center to the king side, already creating a lot of attacking potential for his pieces. Another knight jump was the one on f4, but knight f4 can be simply traded. That's a strong piece, so we just get rid of it. And after queen g3, since white has better communications, it would be easier for him to attack. Next move is going to be knight g5, and anytime the rooks are traded, the second one can come into the action. Sometimes we can bring pieces into the attack with simple trades, like it is in this example. Finally, a move like knight b4 can be answered bishop g5. If you can bring a piece into the attack with a tempo, do not hesitate to do that. It is always useful. It is never really going to be useless. You will find a way how to do it. And if knight takes d3, c takes d3, queen d3, the same idea, the same method. We can bring a piece which is doing nothing and which is not helping into the attack this rook. We go rook d1. Are we going to use it on the open file? We're not sure, but if a chance occurs, we will be ready to do it. For example, queen c2 or queen b3, that would be answered knight f6, and after bishop f6, e takes f6, and anytime this bishop moves, the rook is ready to come on d7, this rook that we were talking about. Or after rook d1, if black goes queen to c2, there'll be again knight f6 check. Pieces are getting closer and closer. Then we take with the pawn, and we are attacking on the dark squares. There is no escape for black after rook d7. Say bishop takes f3, rook g7 check, rook takes f3, and just one nice line on knight d5. There'll be f7, beautiful move, taking away the g8 square from the opponent's king. And after the capture on b2 to try to defend the diagonal, because on king takes g7, there will be checkmate into with queen e5 and queen takes f6. After this capture, white can checkmate in a different way. Now he has all the reserves into the attack, so he can sacrifice one of them, break open the opponent's king side, and then with queen h4 and queen h6, deliver the checkmate. The lines are quite convincing, and Karjakin's play in the game after b7, bishop b7 was quite convincing too. Again, he's using the chance to bring one more piece into the attack with a tempo, bishop g5. A simple move, nothing really exceptional, but this is how you build the attack. Bring on the reserves with a tempo, anytime you have a chance. After queen d7, queen h4. If you didn't notice this, let me just show you the last moves by white, how easily he brought every single piece into the king side. Queen e1 first of all, then capture, then e5, open the e4 square for the knight came closer, then after the treat, next move bishop g5, the bishop came closer, now the queen came closer, next move rook ad1. Everything is there, every single piece. Simple moves, nothing really surprising. And already black is losing. For example, if he captures on d3, there'll be rook takes d3 on queen c6, knight f6 check, and white is simply trading two of the defenders of black's position. Next, queen to h6 is a threat, and if rook e8, that's an instructive move, rook d2. You might be a little bit surprised to see that white is moving backwards with the rook, but the idea is to bring on this knight into the attack with the move knight e5. Before that, the g2 square was under the attack of the black pieces. He was threatening checkmate with the move rook d2. White is preparing knight e5 and f7, and there is no escape against this threat. Say e5, capture, rook takes e5, f7 check. Now he is forced to take it, as otherwise there will be queen to h6 or bishop f6. And when he takes, we take, and take on h7 and rook d8 check to block completely the black king and to finally checkmate it with bishop h6. Well, what actually happened in the game was that instead of knight takes d3, black played queen to c6, to which Karjakin found a very nice way to finish the game. First of all, he played knight f6, a move that we have seen before too. Bishop f6, this defender is going to go away, and before taking it, Karjakin further on opened the road for his pieces with the familiar explosive way of bringing on the reserves. Bishop takes g6. He is opening the road for his rook. After h takes g6, he took with the bishop, and black is helpless. The threat is queen h8 check, followed by queen g7. Preliminary knight g5 should be avoided because of the checkmate, but we can do it with tempos. And if a move like knight cd5 to try to get rid of the bishop on f6, then we can bring on the reserves with the move knight e4 with a tempo. Now there is no checkmate on g2, the knight is blocking it, and if c takes d4, there will be queen h8 check, followed by discover check. The rook is working from f1, and it is finally delivering the checkmate on e7 himself. Well, the game ended after bishop f6, rook takes f6, and after this capture, rook f8 and queen g5, Ivanchuk saw no way of continuing the game. There are too many threats. The most obvious one, queen takes e6 and checkmate on the next move, and on queen e8 there would be knight to e5, or even rook d8 first, and since black cannot capture it because of the same old checkmate, he will have to go queen to f7, and then after rook takes f8, king takes f8, and knight e5, white can keep on bringing on reserves and reserves until black gets out of defenders. And that's it. This is everything from that game. Ivanchuk, in fact, resigned after queen g5. Too many threats. Queen g6, knight e5, knight h4, f7. There is nothing he can do. But that game, even though it seemed very simple, showed the typical way of bringing on the reserves. Try to do it with tempos. Try to attack something with every move that you make, and don't miss a chance to bring every single bit of power, attacking power that you can, in order to checkmate the opponent's king. Thank you for your attention and see you next time.